Hello, hello, the name is Regis Kilbin, and today we're going to be talking about the Haunted Mines Tassadar build. And yes, that is the same Haunted Mines as the map, because this Tassadar build is designed specifically to be played on Haunted Mines. Now, the reason for that is because Tassadar is actually probably the best character to play on Haunted Mines, minus maybe Sylvanas, and that's because he is just insanely good at defending your lane against the enemy's encroaching golem. He can shield towers and do all kinds of fancy tricks, and heal towers and forts, and basically everything you need to do to defend your golem lane. And he can basically do it by himself, unless there's like an 80, 90, or 100 skull golem facing him down. So he's a really good and unusual pick to take in Haunted Mines in Hero League. And if you happen to run into Haunted Mines in a quick match, you're going to be very well prepared with this Tassadar build. I cannot recommend this build on other maps in particular. It's not too terrible on Sky Temple or any map where there's unavoidable siege damage from objectives. So like Sky Temple, Haunted Mines, potentially Blackheart's Bay. But really, this is designed for Haunted Mines because those games are won and lost on the map objective, not in team fights. So you will be sacrificing quite a bit of team fight utility with this build, and that's just to gain siege defense. So without any further delay, let's run through the talents real fast. Reinforce Structure, Promote, Call Down Mule, Archon, Shrink Ray, Second Strike, and Twilight Archon. And now let's just go through each of those in a little detail and explain why we picked them and why they matter. So level 1, we're going to go with Reinforced Structure. Plasma Shield, which is your Q ability, is 100% stronger and lasts 100% longer when cast on structures. So this gives 1,000 damage right now, which means if I cast it on this tower, it's going to give the tower an extra 2,000 hit points. So when the enemy golem in Haunted Mines is beaten on your lane, casting this can slow it down immensely. I mean, if it's a normal sized golem, there's potentially it won't even get through a tower. It's that good. Like, it slows it down so much that it'll have trouble killing a tower by itself. Now, of course, if the enemy team is here, it's going to do more work. But by itself, you can almost totally stop an enemy golem just with that one talent right there. So I see a lot of Tassadars played in Haunted Mines because they hear, oh, Tassadar's so good on this map. It's almost as good as Sylvanas, maybe better than Sylvanas. He's a great counter on this map. But then I see people just ignore this talent for something like Conjurer's Pursuit, which is a more standard choice. But Reinforced Structure is the whole point. It's so good, and you can do it right from the start. It'll be there right from the very first round of golems. At level 4, we're going to do something a little bit unusual, and that is that we're going to take Promote. You really don't see this picked by a lot of people, even on Haunted Mines, but I'm going to explain why I think it's pretty good. So if you're unfamiliar with Promote, this is a 30-second cooldown ability with 2 charges that buffs an allied minion. Let's watch it in action. It buffs an allied minions damage by 100%, and they take reduced damage by 75% against non-heroic sources. But we mostly care about that 100% bonus damage. And that's good on Haunted Mines for a few different reasons. Number 1 is that minions will attack the golem if it's at your gate. So as they're beating on the golem, you can give them a little bit extra damage to burn it down. Secondly is that lanes tend to get ignored during the golem phase, like the lane that the enemy's golem is not in, they won't pay much attention to it. So you can go drop a couple promotes in that lane, and it'll have time to actually do work and essentially split push for you, which is not useful for winning the game right away necessarily, but it can be useful for developing a little bit of extra XP and causing them to rotate and defend that lane and just giving you some map pressure and some extra space to work with. So Promote can do extra damage against the golem when defending, and it can also just split push well. It's a risky choice, but none of the other talents here really stand out on Haunted Mines. They're all fine in other ways, but Promote actually does something to help you on this map. So to me, it gets the edge. At level 7, we're going to go with Call Down Mule. This is a 60-second cooldown ability. This is going to be hard to watch in action because our stuff hasn't taken any damage yet, but this will heal up your structures and give them ammo. So if you're able to slow down or halt a golem that's beaten down your gate to half life, this will basically restore it to full life, and that works on towers, gates, forts, keeps, pretty much anything, even the core. So in really long and extended games where no one's getting an edge, Mule can make a huge difference because it'll slow down the first few rounds of the golem, and it can also basically give you a core that's at a fresh 100% every single golem round. So in those extremely rare 30-minute Haunted Mine games where no one seems to get an edge, eventually Mule is going to win it out for you if the enemy team doesn't have Mule, and no one seems to be messing up. It's just so good. As soon as you get it and it stays good for the whole match, it can really make the difference all on its own. At level 10, we're going to go with Archon. This is just kind of the go-to heroic ability choice for Tassadar. It transforms you into Archon, which is awfully cool looking. It gives you a big shield, some extra damage, and a little bit of splash damage with your basic attacks. It's great for little team fights and skirmishes that tend to happen. It can help you push down a gate or a fort or anything you need extra damage when you're pushing alongside the golem, but usually you'll be defending. So it can also help you defend. If there are 3 or 4 people assaulting your gate, if you pop Arc on it, it'll give you a little bit of extra damage and that splash damage to hit 3 or 4 people at once. So it's pretty good for defending. It can be great in team fights if things get messy down in the mines. It's just all around solid choice. At level 13, we're going to go with Shrink Ray. We have a lot of active abilities up here, but it's not too hard to manage. Shrink Ray, when you activate this, it will reduce an enemy hero's damage by 50% and their movement speed by 50%, and it will make them all cute and tiny for 4 seconds. This can be good, again, in team fights. It just has some utility. But I like it if the enemy team is pushing against your gate or your fort really hard. If they have somebody who's doing a ton of damage, like, say, a Tychus or a Rainer, you can just go ahead and shrink them and basically cut their damage in half for 4 seconds, which is not huge, but when they're burning through your shields and assisting their golem in big ways, can make a little bit of a difference. So that utility coupled with just the general team fight aid that Shrink Ray can be, it's a pretty good talent to have on Haunted Mines. Level 17, we're going to go with Second Strike. After casting Psionic Storm, which is your W ability, you can cast another one for free within 3 seconds. So whenever you're pushing alongside your golem or looking for the win, you can do stuff like that and basically do twice as much damage with your primary siege damage ability, which is your Psionic Storm. It's also really good in team fights for just zoning or covering space and making sure you're hitting their full team with damage. It's not that helpful in the mines themselves when clearing camps, because your W is good enough as it is to clear camps really easily, plus the damage on it doesn't stack, so dropping 2 on top of each other doesn't do twice the damage. So it's not great there, but in every other regard, it's pretty fantastic. It's also good when defending. If they're lining up across the gate here, you can just, hit their whole team and zone them out a little faster and make sure you're protecting in the maximum efficiency. And then finally, level 20, we're going to go with Twilight Archon. This is a buff to your heroic ability. All that cool stuff you get from normal Archon is all increased by 35%. So your shield is bigger, your attacks do a little more damage, and your range is increased. Same reasons Archon is good in the first place, this just makes it even better. Better in team fights, better at defending, and better at pushing. So it's a pretty solid choice. Nothing else here is all that enticing. So this is the Haunted Mines Tassadar build. If you play this well and you understand how these first 3 talents really work on Haunted Mines, your 3 active abilities essentially, well, not your 3 active abilities, these 2 active abilities in your shield, if you understand how those work and impact the map on Haunted Mines, you'll be giving your team a huge advantage. Just make sure that your team focuses on the map and not on team fights or engagements, because you are giving up a little bit there. Even though this is perfect for Haunted Mines, it's not always great to play this as the solo support in Hero League. This is generally going to be a secondary support role. So if your team's down to the last pick and you want to play Tassadar and they still need a healer, maybe think twice. See what the enemy team has, see what your team has. Maybe just ask if they're comfortable with that. But if you pick this up as almost a specialist or utility character alongside a full support, your team's going to do work. You're going to be able to defend incredibly well, and you'll be giving yourself a much higher likelihood of win on Haunted Mines. So Hope you have fun learning and playing this build. You're not going to get to use it all that often, but when you do, it's pretty amazing to watch in action. So until next time, game on.